Yeah. You might understand. You were going to spend, and that's that hope. Is that right? Much. Thanks. So I guess it. Want to go on. You represent the prosecutor? I'm kidding. No. Well, then I'll just make it easy for you right now. No. Oh. Go ahead, text him. Yeah. Basically, on the same plot, remember that the Model A had the gates. And
Basically,
yeah.
a total about 59,000 for 2 years.
Is that right?
I think it was $700 per camera for the stationary units and $3,000. I don't know about the paperwork to make it payments that have to.
I have a bees going under that. So
Yeah, Tony, we're going to get started. We're just waiting to see if you can hear us.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay, you must not have heard Rachel say you look like you aged 20 years, she said.
Oh, really?
Call this meeting to order with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, welcome to the Starke County Council meeting, Friday, February 17th. We are present here in quorum and we have Antoine Black on Zoom.
Yep.
We will follow the agenda as written. First, we have a couple of housekeeping items. I have before me the minutes from January 16th, 2023. If you've already reviewed those, I'll look for a motion or discussion on those minutes.
I'll make a motion.
Have a motion from Kay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Bruce. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. And then the other item that I have before me is the ordinance that we discussed last time to assist the BZA and the Planning Commission to deal with the funds that they were collecting. We made the suggestion that they split it. So Justin revised the ordinance to reflect that. Otherwise, it's the same that you've heard before. It's pursuant to code 36.7-4. You've seen this. Is there any discussion on this, or would somebody like to make a motion?
We gotta suspend the third reading, right? Yeah, I guess this would be the second, yes. Motion to suspend the rules and pass on second reading. I'll make the motion that we suspend the rules and pass it on the second reading.
We have a motion from Todd. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second from Howard. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there any opposed? All in favor. While you're passing that down, we do have the Chief Deputy Hutchins here for the discussion about the opioid funding these flock cameras. The commissioners have already approved it. Do you want to tell us, Jack, a little bit? Is that this is like for SWAT, or what are these going to do?
So flock cameras are a stationary camera. Porter County has over 90 of them. Washington PD has 13 of them, one of which are in our county. Pulaski County has, I think, 3 or 4, 2 of which I think are at our county line. So what they do is they're motion activated, they take pictures, it's tied in with our databases, so if a vehicle stolen. The person has a warrant or something like that, it'll pop up and let you know that that's the vehicle. You can search by make, model of the vehicle, you can search by the color of the vehicle, you can search by a license plate, there's a lot of cool things you can do. With it, I think it really helped combat the opioid issue,
How many cameras is this gonna buy?
so.
I should have asked you that.
Yeah, it'd be a total of 11.
11.
10 stationary and 1 mobile unit, and the mobile unit's rechargeable, we can just stick it up pretty much wherever we want.
And this is a 2-year program. We were looking at your paperwork
Correct.
earlier. The commissioners have already approved it. I actually talked to Jack about this before. It seems. Well, and like I said, commissioners have already approved, but it seems pretty sensible. Does anybody have any discussion about this?
How much is the funding for it?
Oh, sorry, it's 59,500, sir.
I assume they're all solar.
Yeah, they're solar powered. The entire. The entire agreement is 59,500. There's a $350 setup for each stationary unit, so it's a one-time 3,500. The mobile unit is 3,000, and then 10 cameras at 2,500 each, and for the 2 years it'd be 59,500.
The opioid funding fund all of it?
Yes, I believe they can be used in the opioid funds.
Commissioners.
Yeah.
have already-
Wasn't it contingent upon what they said, the board for the opioid funding? I mean, even the commissioners, when I was there, I thought that was contingent upon, that being the funding for it, correct?
I think the contingency, I had to remove some wording from the contract, which the provider was willing to do for us. We did discuss, you're right, we did discuss whether or not it fell within the 17 pages of allowable preventative and rehabilitative programming. They want to see for the restricted uses of the funding, and we think that it does because it's pretty.
Okay.
It's construed as what you can use it for. But again, I wasn't contacted them from the company, and there's just some warranty information. We specifically were looking at that since we had the other issues at the jail with the new system, so we wanted to make sure that they
Yeah.
couldn't just claim all warranties if it didn't work for its intended purpose. So we just said, hey, if you want to take this up, they said no problem, and as easy as that.
I would gladly make the motion contingent upon the funding coming from
The opioid fund.
I don't think that would be out of line, would it?
I think that's a fair motion. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second, okay, she beat you, Todd. I saw you nod your head. A second from Kay, and then is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Be careful out there.
Thanks.
Leslie, everyone got an email with this information,
Oh, I didn't either. I asked him.
from Leslie about the
Yeah, it's either insurance claiming or.
which you also have before you too, about the raise for her staff person. I guess the only question I would have, Leslie, is normally we do raises and we need to emphasize this. Please remind everybody, all the other departments, Rachel, that we do raises during budget workshop time and budget planning. I guess I would just wonder, where would we get the match difference at for this?
So the match difference of the 1,057 per year, actually, we could move it from my deputy prosecutor position for my office. That position has kind of been filled in a part-time capacity with most of the money for the person filling that coming out of the child support budget. So we could pull, at least for the remainder of this year, the money for this difference from the remainder that's in the budget number from my office, which is 0008. Is that the right one? For the rest of the year, and then I can work that into my budget for next year. Because this is a 2-year grant cycle.
So what happens after the 2-year grant cycle? Then how do we pay for it?
Well, she would keep.
Theoretically, keep applying, theoretically
Correct.
getting it.
Yes.
I guess the only issue with that is that, we have everybody on a raise cycle. This person just got 5%, got a 5% raise this year. I mean, why are they deserving of another raise and the rest of the county is not?
Well, I mean, this position is a little bit different. It is a grant position that exists through a federal, both the federal local program and the state local program. And this is part of what we applied for in terms of seeking out the use of additional monies to cover the salaries. We've done some research as to what other victim advocates make that have similar responsibilities. And what we are proposing is a salary that is similar to what other counties surrounding us are paying for this position.
Is that in the stack somewhere, what the other counties are paying?
No, no, this was approved in the grant that we got, and I believe it was approved to start for this calendar year. You mean in your new grant paperwork that was? Yes. Yes. I think that grant is on a fiscal year. Is it on fiscal year? So it doesn't go into effect until July 1st.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so early in the year of your budget and, you know, it's such a hard budget to follow with your 4D and all your other things. Like it's so early to start borrowing a computer to pay Paul when we just got started the first month, you know? Just scares me to do that, to say that, you know, you can pay it from somewhere and then we come up on the end of the year and we say, oh, well, hey, council, you funded it then. So now you have to find where to find the shortfall. You know what I mean?
Well, given the fact that we're not talking about an astronomical amount of money in terms of, you know, the difference. I mean, we're talking about $40.65 a pay period. I don't think that it would be too big of an issue for me to make that work. We're already approaching the end of February, and my intention with the actual deputy position, I'm kind of waiting to see what a few other prosecutors in surrounding counties are doing, because there is, I don't want to say a shortage of prosecutors, but I do know many other prosecutors' offices in some bigger counties that are having trouble filling their positions. And so I am starting to question whether the third full-time deputy position makes sense. If that should be something that is split into two part-time positions. One that is a part-time child support person, which is basically what I'm doing right now. And then doing another part-time deputy position that would be an hourly position. But I am kind of waiting to see until some dust settles, especially in Fort County, as that new prosecutor gets settled into his office, and kind of just seeing what issues he's having in terms of hiring people and that sort of thing. Because we don't have the Valpo Law School anymore in terms of, you know, seeking out new lawyers for a deputy position, which was something we had in years past. And with that not being there, finding a seasoned attorney to come and take on an entry-level position is very difficult. And we just don't have as many entry-level attorneys around this area to take on that type of position. So it may make more sense to divide that already existing position into two part-time positions.
Positions that don't have to be attorneys.
No, they would be attorneys,
Oh.
but the idea would be like when you are a part-time prosecutor, you can do other work. You can have a practice outside of that. You just won't be able to do criminal law. So you could do family law, probate law, and other things. And you would just have, you know, your duties within that prosecutor's position if you like that kind of work.
What's the range then in the other counties for this victim advocate?
It's from what we've seen anywhere from 35 to 45,000. And a lot of these positions, we see a lot of these positions are funded through this grant program. It's a pretty important position in terms of outreach from the prosecutor's office and acting as that middleman between victim population and attorneys, just because when you're trying to keep track of, you know, just having somebody that directly keeps track of victims and meets with them and talks to them, whether it be about restitution or whether it be about cases where there's domestic violence or things of that nature, it's a pretty important role that they play.
I guess I always wish when these things come along that it'll just pay more of a person's salary instead of having to give them a raise every time. I'll defer to the council for.
So this would be the advocate would be getting $39,000 a year.
Yes.
What kind of schooling is customary for an advocate?
Well, my victim advocate currently, she has a bachelor's degree. She has a pretty extensive resume. She's worked for DCS. She worked for DCS for quite some time. She's worked as an advocate before. She's worked with kids. She's worked with young adults. Honestly, I haven't really looked at what other counties are requiring or in terms of a college background or anything like that, but I would say most would have the requirement of having a bachelor's degree.
And does your job, sorry, does your
Go ahead,
job, because that's a great question. Does the job description for this position say that it should be, you would think that it would say then too, that we have a bachelor's for that is a good question.
Let me look. I haven't looked at the description.
While you're looking, then I think personally, then the only concern I would have, obviously, you know what you need to run your office, but we've made motions before that were contingent on any changes that might happen to the grant funding. I mean, because the thing is obviously, otherwise then we open up, but we're vulnerable if it goes down and we commit to an amount, and then, by law, we can't just back them up if we hadn't, made a provision for that in the beginning, you know what I mean? So I think the best thing, in my eyes, we would want to do is make it that it's contingent that the funding's there.
Well, I don't think this new funding, the hiring starts till July 1st.
July 1st. So it's only half a year then.
Well, I mean, the position itself is contingent on the grant funding as well, because if the grant goes away, then the position would
Goes
go
away,
away.
right? That's why I'm saying, I'm just saying maybe the motion should have that, just to be safe.
How many hours would your advocate put in?
She works 35 to 40 hours.
That's
a
already
week.
afraid of us, if it disappeared, that we still had to employ the person.
I don't think that's too much. to
And
ask.
the $1,057 will come out of your
The different law and
deputy prosecutor's salary.
No, not the chief deputy. So when I said the chief deputy prosecutor's salary are state paid positions.
Okay,
This is the deputy
The-
line item.
okay, all
And
right.
that salary comes out of two different.
Deputy
funds.
line, I got you.
Yeah.
So what? And do you see that in the future that the deputy, that these funds will come out of in the future, that you can continue to take this out of that part of your budget?
I think I can make it work. Like I said, I really want to try to be creative with that third full-time position
Okay.
that I have, considering the fact that it is entry-level pay and entry-level attorneys are harder to come by. I mean, and I obviously moved back here because I wanted to raise a family here, but when you have a lot of young attorneys that don't necessarily come from here and they're not moving back here, they want to go to your bigger counties, they get their experience, and then they stay within a firm life. And that's something you're going to find in a bigger area. And so, I'm going to see if, I think I would have better luck utilizing part-time attorneys for a position. So that may be part of my budget when I do my budget for this coming year, possibly converting those positions into creating 2 part-time positions.
So actually, this would be of no additional expense to the county if we could work it out of your budget.
Correct.
But I understand where Dave's coming from too. In the future, is this something that you can do prior to budgeting?
2-year cycle.
It is a 2-year grant cycle. yes.
So, okay, so we wouldn't have to be concerned about it for 2 years then.
Correct.
But is it, so then the question is that something that can be done at or before budgeting for the following year, or it just depends on when the grants are available?
I think if we are, I think going forward, we'll be able to work it in with the budget for the next year. Usually the funds are pretty consistent, and I hope I'm answering your question. Usually the funds are pretty consistent. So we can typically anticipate what we're going to be awarded. The only thing that could be a big change is if we aren't awarded grant money at all.
Right. And we were just talking about that actually. I mean, we can eliminate the position. The other thing that we have to be wary of then though with positions like this is if we go for a 5% raise again for all the other employees.
Yeah, this
would be excluded from that.
This is 15 right here.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because then that increases it beyond the grant then, and then we're on the hook for that plus the 5%, you know what I mean? Because the grant only pays so much. So we'll just have to earmark that if this does pass, we'll have to make sure positions like this that are grant funded and then, have a set match That we don't box ourselves in the corner and say, oh, here's another 5%. Plus, like you said, we just gave 15 now, we did it.
Yeah, this is 15%.
Just, it's just so hard with the other departments, like.
But on the other, in a positive point, if she's got somebody that's working out well for her, doing a good job, we need to be competitive and not lose them to another county
Is
too.
that a motion?
No, but
I'm saying I'm not against.
I will make a motion.
We have a motion from Howard. Is there a second?
A second.
Second from Bruce. Is there any additional discussion?
Yeah.
When is it starting? Do I need? to-
July 1st.
Well, I'm not sure. I gotta read the grant paperwork.
Whenever the grant
We
starts.
wanted something on a
Oh,
contingent.
it is contingent.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. This is
Right, that's
contingent.
where my
Contingent of
motion
the grant?
Yeah, when the
Yes,
grant starts.
contingent of the grant.
Right, it's a fiscal, because I'm pretty sure it's a fiscal grant.
So as far as budgeting, Dave, that's not a problem, right?
Well, it is a problem because she's still got to find it in her budget, but she's saying she's
No,
committed
it's
to
her
that, so it's her problem.
Right, she committed to
Yeah.
the budget, so.
Yeah. But it's a somewhat slight problem because it's not a lot
I'll
of
figure
money.
it out with Rachel's help.
Yeah. Would you guys like to amend your motion in second then, Howard and Bruce?
Well,
That it's
my motion was that we grant this on a contingent basis, that the grant stays available.
Okay.
And that the $1,057 comes out of the current and future current budget of 2023.
Well, it starts at the grant cycle, though.
That's fine.
Okay.
Do I need to?
My this is proposed, that's assuming that she gets,
Yeah.
What
that's
she
what you mean. So it
proposed.
starts
Well,
at the
actually,
grant
it'd only be
cycle.
500 or
Yeah.
whatever, $28.
That makes it sound a little better.
Right.
Thank you. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm good with contingent upon the approval.
Okay. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Is there any opposed?
Yeah.
Mary, so we've already had these discussions with Mary about funding some scanning, and we talked about ARPA funds, and really we were kind of just discussing that a little bit too. I mean, one of the things that ARPA funds are really good for are things that are convenience features for for the residents of the county. So, and if you remember, Bose mentioned it to a few of us, and he was saying it was going to be like 3,000 to 5,000. It wasn't anything gigantic.
It's more than
I
that.
see that look on her face. It's like 30.
Well, when I walked in, I saw you were a little scared, but I didn't know if it was because of the coat. Or-
Whoa. I'm just throwing things everywhere.
Hey, Jesse.
Thanks, Mary. How are you?
All right.
That'll cover all these cabinets that you have in the picture.
That's one cabinet.
One cabinet. Not this, just this one,
It is only this cabinet,
this cabinet.
and it is only this drawer, this drawer, this drawer, and this drawer. Okay. So, the pictures you got, like I just showed Dave, is for one cabinet that I have upstairs that is an indexing cabinet. And as I've tried to discuss with like the planning commission and this, the easiest way to explain this cabinet to you is to think about it as a card catalog like you would have had at the library. And you want to find a certain book, you go to that card catalog, you'd look it up by the author or the name of the book. And then you would be able to, it would tell you where to go find it in the library. So this cabinet is my card catalog for permits. And that first page that I gave you guys, I think it was the first page. Yeah. Those are the two different types of cards that I have in that cabinet. The first one is a section, township, and range card. So on those cards are all mainly double-sided. They have anyone who in that particular township in that particular section of the township who's gotten a permit. So some sections, you know, particularly like Davis Township, where there's a lot of floodplain in that, you're not gonna get a whole lot of cards. But then I have other sections, for instance, like out at Bass Lake, where I'm on like card 33 for one section in their front and back. The second card on this page is an alphabetical name card. Anyone who comes in and gets a permit when is issued or gets an alphabetical name card, and that has every permit on it that they've ever applied for. On, even if they have moved or anything like that, it would have the different section, township, and range, and the different legal description of where they've moved to on it. And it states what type of permit they've applied for and the permit number.
Who's usually looking for this to look it up? The people that had their permits, or like,
Me.
but because you want to research it
No.
for, like,
I get calls from banks,
oh, okay.
property owners, people that are wanting to buy houses.
Yeah.
And wanting information on the house that they are potentially buying, whether it ever had a permit,
Right.
the size of it, any information basically like that on it. Who built it, sometimes they want to know, so that they can go ask that builder, you know, questions about it. The assessor's office comes to me for permits too, and they need copies of permits so that they're able to go out and assess better. And, you know, and they're also able to tell me, you know, hey, this person didn't, you know, on newer permits, you know, they told you they were building this size, but they built this size, you know.
How does it interface with GIS though? Because, and I will say, like, when you look at LaPorte County uses Beacon, it seems like Beacon has a little bit more of this kind of information. But like our GIS also has some of this, like, do they talk to it? Like, because like, they can look some of that up on GIS, right? They're looking for that information. Yeah. So this would just enhance
Not-
that?
No,
It's just the property record card.
yeah, that's just the property record card. All of that information that they have on that property record card, for instance, like for their house,
Yeah.
and that comes from the permit when they apply for it.
Okay.
Okay, so if something on that property records card is wrong, and like somebody comes in and is disputing something with the assessor's office, they might come up and ask me then to pull the original permit on that house so that they can see what was actually applied for,
Okay.
how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, that kind of thing.
So you look it up on this card originally, and then you go to something after that, right? Using
Yeah.
this number?
Yes.
Okay. I wanted this, I don't know if all the
No,
council
it's
understands how this
kind
works, so.
of confusing, yeah, to explain.
Who's doing the other scanning for us?
I was gonna ask, is it the same company? I was gonna ask the same thing.
Fiddler, who is, they're connected to the
Yeah.
clerk system and the recorder
Oh,
system.
okay.
They're not
Yeah.
connected to like
Okay.
their system.
Which their system.
This company has done scanning for us. For the recorder's office though.
Oh, this is the one that Mandy used?
Mhm.
So do you, when you get new permits, do you like update
Well-
new cards?
Yeah, so that's where we're going next.
Yeah, 'cause
Software.
that's what I was gonna say, isn't that any software? I was gonna ask the same thing,
Yeah.
14,000, can
Have
we
it?
just get software?
Made it there yet. Okay. So we have permits going back in the planning commission, starting from 1955 to currently. Okay, and believe it or not, I do occasionally still get somebody calling for a permit from the 50s.
Really?
So, you know, whether or not, you know, I can find it, what they're looking for is another question, but, we didn't go on computer until around 2012. Okay, so around 2012, that was a little before I was here. In 2012, the system that they used then was PT Win with Black Bear. That system, we had to change and move over to a new system because they went out of business and none of our information was backed up whatsoever. So in 2015, we switched over to iWorks. iWorks is backed up here and it's backed up on their servers in Utah. So it's, you have a, I can't think of the word I'm looking for. But there's a contingency for, you know, if the building burned down. If our servers.
It's a redundancy.
Yeah, thank you. And it's a third party that backs it up, and then that way, not only do we have the information here, but it's, you know, safe somewhere else too. So it's a much better system. This system, I'm able to look up any new permits much easier than using this index cabinet. This, any new permits since 2015, it's 10 times faster for me to punch in their parcel number and I can look up all their permits that way. That didn't start though until 2015. So anything prior to that, I rely on this index cabinet. If this building, you know, if we, you know, God forsake us, you know, had a fire or something, there would be absolutely no way to look up any permit information on any permit that was ever issued from 1955 to 2012. We have nothing on computer for that time frame.
So what do you do with your old hard copies? Are they stored somewhere?
They're
'Cause you're
stored
talking-
upstairs in a file cabinet.
And they'll remain there? You're talking to a guy that went through an annex fire.
Yeah.
Many months ago.
Yeah. Now, I would really like, eventually, it would be great to even get those scanned. Because, I mean, you're only got a limited amount of information on these index cards.
Okay, so those, you're not talking about
No.
those things.
Because to get all of those scanned, I have approximately, I think about 6 filing cabinets, 6 or 7 around there, don't quote me on that. But to get all of those scanned, would be a lot due to the fact that they are in books and they have staples in them.
So as far as the storage then, because we have redundant servers here within the county, are you saying that this also comes with some kind of store, like offsite storage?
Well, this they would give us and it would be able to be uploaded to DocuWare.
Oh, it is, does, okay, I was
Yeah.
just gonna ask about DocuWare, okay,
Yeah.
so. This doesn't include any kind of offsite storage or any annual fees
No.
or anything like that, this is
This
just
is
for this.
one
get this
time,
done.
yeah. But it would give us a little bit more security then in that regard to where this stuff would be a little bit more backed up digitally.
For the council's knowledge, we did a lot of 100,000 for scanning. 50 went to the treasurer's office and 50 went upstairs, but we used all, I'm sorry, the clerk, and but it's all gone. But we could, if we were gonna fund this, we would most likely fund this out of lost revenue. We parked enough there. Obviously it would qualify for infrastructure, so the other big one is lost revenue, but I mean, these kind of things make sense.
I think it'll make her job. She can be more effective and handle things quicker and take a lot of strain, and the records are preserved and we've been talking about this for 5 or 6 months now. And she was just getting the funding put together, and you know, we've got ARPA money to spend, and I don't think any of us are real perfectly clear on what we can spend it on yet. We know we can spend it on this.
Yeah.
We know we can't spend it on. We know what we can't spend it on. Some of the stuff we can't spend it on. When the gentleman was in here a year ago, that was, I think maybe promoting himself as trying to help us spend money.
He was spending it all on him.
We can spend it on things that we need. So
Right,
this-
he wasn't real sure. So,
Right. So what I would say, since I would be voting to break a tie, say, for example, I'm gonna make the motion that we fund $14,072.68 out of lost revenue, ARPA. for this project.
I'll second it.
You have a second. Is there any discussion?
We don't want to go through the fire again.
Any that are in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? All in favor, Rachel. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
That's up, Dave, the last summer, isn't that exactly why you're not that for that?
Yeah.
And in all honesty, this is one of those cases where if it comes from lost revenue, because we would have funded it, but we wouldn't have had the money. So this way, at least we would have, that's a win-win.
If your pen doesn't work very well.
I know that some met with Dan. I met with Dan as well to talk about this local road safety plan and about this funding and this colored pie chart was really interesting because we do have a lot of animal crashes in Starke County. Like, I was interested to know, because you look at crashes, intersections versus non-intersection crashes and things like that. I'm seeing Facebook, hearing people talking all the time about hitting animals. And so personally, I'd be interested in some features in the county that help reduce that. I mean, the funding here, we saw one of the things that was funded. It was a 90-10, it was $550,000 grant. So the thing that I asked Dan is that whatever the consultant fee ends up, is you have to use a consultant. That was the other thing too, is I feel like they're very efficient on metrics at the highway department. The grant requires that they use a consultant to be able to put the plan together. The only thing that I left though is, Dan, is that one thing that I have a bad taste in my mouth is with USI, because we were talking about a $7,000 deal for 600 East. USI comes back at 50,000 and then commissioners want to walk away from it. I mean, there was a lot of benefits with that, with connecting to the park and all these other things. So all I would ask is, I meant to ask you, did we talk to any other consultants? Because I would like to get a quote. Because I think 72,000.
So we're in the process of getting a second quote.
Okay.
And we're also trying to figure out of the three original counties that got a safety plan. We're trying to figure out how much they spent to get their plan and then what they've gotten back in grants since then.
Yeah.
So did this pay for itself or not?
Because Boone County is not really a fair comparison.
No, they're a little more well.
It's probably the richest county in the state.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But the thing that really, this LTAP study though, is really,
yeah.
that's valuable. I mean, to look and see what we've got going on here.
So the highest, we're higher than the state average in two categories, animal crashes and intersection crashes.
Yeah.
Wait till they get all the fences up for the solar panel, and then you're gonna see more animals.
Like I told Dave, I did talk to somebody about the solar plan, because I directly have direct knowledge of it. And, yeah, the price is so contingent on how the plan is written. There is no criteria to how the plan has to be written. You could write this big large plan, you could say blah, 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 or you could write this plan and say, we need striping on our roads, we need to cut this hill down because there's a site distance problem.
Right.
So it's very contingent on how it's done.
Yeah.
If it's a whole county overview or if it's specific projects.
Yeah. And actually, in reviewing the grant, that's a great point, because when you kind of just visualize yourself around Starke County, Total Road's a perfect example that has terrible line of sight, terrible visibility, and it has a lot of blind entrances. Yeah, it has a lot of issues. An example, some of that could be improved. For example, that would be
Because NDOT has they have a website that deals, it talks all about this. Because somebody I know that's personally involved with these plans. They sent me the links to NDOT, what they will accept, what they won't.
we have $1 million allotted for infrastructure.
Yeah, there's 25 different criteria they'll accept.
25. If this was a little further along, a little closer to start bringing solar money in, I was telling Dan too, in my heart, I feel like that would be one thing too, that the solar money would be good for, because the highway department was so instrumental in, making all this happen with the solar. But we do have the infrastructure money there from ARPA. Just my personal opinion is that I think this is valuable. It sounds good. I mean, I was a little hesitant before we met and went through the benefits of it. The only concern I would have is the consultant. And
Yeah, because if you look at this, there's 25, I haven't read through it before, but there's 25 categories. And there's probably at least 10 or so that don't even apply
Okay.
in here, because we have no traffic signal. You know, a lot of things do not apply.
But the guidance, whoever writes it, whoever the consultant is, they would be following the same guidance, so theoretically, they
Yeah.
would come up with a similar product.
Well, they could. It depends what the scope of the whole plan is.
Yeah, so whatever
That's what
information you
they-
get from LTAP. So no two road plans will be the same because not every county has the same issues.
Sure.
No, but one consultant to the
We're
other
talking
should be
about
apples to
consultants,
apples.
yeah.
It shouldn't be apples to oranges,
Right.
you know, and that's why. If you are getting two bids. What are the bids based off of? Are they based off of whoever drew up the first plan and then the other person has to match their plan? Or is there a criteria saying, we need you to look at this, and this?
I think.
You bid on it?
7,000,
Number
50,000 for 600 east makes me want to definitely take a look at this to see what we're getting, because I think it's a great opportunity, and you know, like looking at the one you gave us an example, 550,000, that's a nice little hit, you know, for the input. That's what I was, yeah, you read my, that's, yeah, I agree, like, I think that would be the thing is let's,
Bring the bids back.
Well, next meeting, I'll bring them back in and we'll have the scopes. But basically, I think what's driving the price is how much work will be done locally versus how much digging they have to do into the records, because you have to go into the Aries crashes and go through all the information. So it's gonna be how much can we assist? And I feel like we should be able to assist them because we have an asset manager that can work on these projects.
we have good staff, I'm impressed with your staff. But I mean, this LTAP study is great, like, it just really opened my eyes up when I saw it, I mean,
Yeah. tell you
It
the
seems,
times, the seasons.
yeah, and you should, like, there's a guide here that would make it pretty easy, I mean,
It's
that's
nice.
why I asked if you guys could write it, you know what I mean, because it's pretty straightforward here, but
Take the hill
that's
down.
why I wanted to emphasize is you have to use a consultant though for the
Then it
grant,
costs
otherwise you can't
$500,000.
get the grant.
Okay.
So,
And then SST4 is that grant's for really big project like
That's what they're,
turnarounds for
72,000, that's insane.
you know, the road width and the Pacers, from Boone County, do you, just in general, like off the top of your head, do you think their Pacers and road width are similar to ours? Because I think that's where we suffer too.
No.
No, you think their
I've
Pacers
done
are higher?
Pacer readings all over the state.
What do you think the Pacers look like in Boone versus here?
Oh, Boone's way better.
Way better? Okay.
Yeah.
What about the road width? Because
Oh,
that's
I'm
another
sure.
thing that we suffer on
It
here.
depends
too.
where you're at in Boone County. I mean, you know, I'm
Yeah.
assuming they're probably 20-foot roadways, at least, probably
Yeah.
more than that, probably 20.
'Cause that's another area where we suffer.
Yeah,
you know, they're highly popular. I
Yeah.
don't know what the population of Boone County
it's
is.
probably hundreds of thousands, I'm sure.
But it'd be interesting for everybody to study this a little bit so they understand what we're doing, because in the front, it talks about the stakeholders, where we get the schools involved, the fire departments involved. As far as any issues they may have in the town.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've had the experience with my own fire department where two trucks were trying to pass and a ladder got knocked off the side, one side of one on a bridge. You know, so the width is definitely an issue in this town.
And these plans are also drawn up by cities and towns.
I wasn't driving.
As well, not only counties.
Yeah, there's a lot of cities applying.
Yeah, that's
For
what
this.
that's what. Some of the involvement I found out was through local cities and counties, you know, towns.
So the important dates to remember is, November is when they make a call for the grants. So if we want to go with local funding, we could probably get this done to make that call. There is a grant available to help pay for the funding of the plan. But then we're gonna be another year out and then another year out for implementation. So you're 2 years out.
And we need to see how much the plan is first,
Yeah.
you know.
The one bid we have so far, 72,000, I think you told me when we met.
Yeah.
So I think,
USI's at 72,000.
like I said, I'm, the only reason why I'm saying is, in particular in this case, I don't know about USI's work. I know we've had different consultants that do things, but that number they came up with for 600 East was shocking after, the estimates we got from other consultants, so. I think it's just worth our while to look at more, but I think it's great that you found this and brought this to our attention. I mean, it's a huge opportunity, I think, for the county. It's safety, well, the numbers don't lie, you know what I'm saying, like I said, with growing as much corn and beans that we do here, deer have a lot of food to eat here. So I don't think we're ever gonna curb that, and I feel like people hunt less. I don't know if that's accurate or not, 'cause I don't hunt regularly, but. So I mean, I think the animal population is gonna continue to be a problem here, and if there's. Well, actually, you mentioned it, that's, there are things that can be done, whether it's fencing or sensors, lights, flashing lights, a lot of different things that, could be paid for, something like this, to maybe reduce that.
So how does that affect your, once the solar stuff is up and the fences are up, we're already seeing on the south end of the county how wildlife throughways are already changing. It's changed a bunch. So what does it do with this?
That's an excellent point. Like, that's probably gonna affect this, and so it's probably perfect timing too, like, for that to be one of the main criteria. The other thing is, the intersection crashes. I mean, we've struggled with some at the state, you can look at 23 and 8, but obviously this is saying too that all of our other intersections, I think one of the problems is. And a lot of times in rural areas, people will just try to slide through a stop sign too, like it's not necessarily because of the signage, just because of their driving habits, because they're in the country. But I don't know, maybe different signage, mowing, cutbacks, setbacks, all those other kind of things, possibly be part of this, right?
Sure.
And help pay, pay for some of those efforts.
Well, Boone County, I mean, they put theirs in place in 2020 and it looks like HWC Engineering did it. You might want to check with them.
That's who
You're
our
doing-
second one is here.
HWC,
Well, that's.
I could see from Boone County,
haven't we used HWC?
we were struggling with right of way signs 30 years ago. And they don't, I just talking with Todd way back when, we struggled with right of way size.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And where I think you get into a boom, that makes a full difference.
Yeah, it's not even, it's just a comparison of. They're the ones that implemented and sold the money they got, but as far as apples to apples. It's nothing compared to this county,
Yeah.
zero.
What do you think about HWC?
I'm probably not in the situation to make a comment about any engineering company.
Oh, right, okay, yeah, I got you. So, but would you say, they're just good, they're as good as USI?
Yeah.
Okay, because it looks like they did a good job on this.
HWC wrote the first three.
Yeah. It's
Oh,
Since it was a pilot program, HWC, Boone, Hendricks, or I'm sorry, Boone, Montgomery, and Harrison counties.
Well, somebody get the word out to HWC, we want a cheap price.
Okay.
I don't know if I know anybody.
Thank you, Dan. It's exciting stuff, really, like,
Thanks.
this is exciting. The next thing that we have is the Economic Development Foundation contract. I met with Lisa yesterday, and I know some of you have met individually. I think we come through each year and it seems like there's a little bit of lack of clarity, from our direction and, there's, some discussion and things. And so, personally, I talked to Lisa, we, had some different ideas, like, I think we agree that one project that's worthwhile is this hotel project. But also keeping, the recognition that this is a for-profit thing, that some entities are making an investment, and dealing with that way. I mean, obviously, we want to see it happen, but, if we're gonna put a lot of effort into, one thing, then we have to help Rachel start a daycare, and all these other, what I mean? We have 23,000 people that, so, but it's great, like that, perfect, like that's a perfect thing, on that side. But then, one of the things we talked about was just getting better paying jobs here.
Right.
And there are multiple ways that we can try to look at those things, but, we talked about more strategy, emphasizing, with, companies, not only just on the interface with the county and the ways we can help, but, making them aware that we've got a lot of people that are driving outside the county that are making good money, that, if we had good jobs here, that they would stay here and live here. So, personally, my personal feeling is that, we can keep moving forward with that. We also suggested to Lisa that one thing, since we're the fiscal body, that we have a better knowledge of what is the county money spent on. Like, I don't want to necessarily every month, but maybe at the end of the year, we have a sheet that says this amount of money was allotted for this, this was this. And that's normally what a fiscal body would do, is just say, hey, what did you spend our money on? And I think that sounded like, a
Absolutely, I
pretty
mean, we have
agreeable
it
thing too.
now on a monthly basis, and I mean, we could say. I mean, our financials are very available.
That's the biggest complaint I've gotten, from everybody, where that money goes,
Yes.
and I say,
And well, several years ago,
Yeah.
Kay was, yeah. Who was the auditor?
Okay.
Kay was the auditor. She came to our office, she went through all of our financials.
Yeah.
We have had, clean audits every single year since I've.
Well,
been
and it's not like an accusation, like it's not like that, that direction, like the main thing is just like, just knowing what, like, we need to do
Sure,
that, so.
we are very transparent, our financials are your financials.
The other thing is that, on these two contracts, the commissioners, have, pretty heavy latitude. And so one of the things at budget time this year during a budget workshop, we're gonna look at this harder to see, just to make sure that the council exercise the authority that we have. Make sure that there's a sound budget, that we're comfortable with the way that we're allowing the commissioners and the Economic Development Foundation to spend the money. And I'll just say that this is the same discussion for skill too. But just so everything's black and white, like nobody in the council's feeling like, that like they can't speak to a constituent if they come, they say, hey, what are these guys doing? What do they have going on? What are they doing with our tax dollars? And so, and if we do our jobs as far as the way we regulate that, then everything will be fine. So I think we can, keep on working towards a more sound product, with the budgeting from our side.
One of the things I wanted to ask, because Cassie's new, Tony's new, I'm new, I'm old, but I'm new. Dave, it'd really be nice if we knew collectively and they knew what is our vision. And we used to talk about that a lot years ago, and I'm unaware of what you all do now, but I would like to sit down in a setting where we could see where our vision is and how we're going to get there.
I want to recognize Bruce for that. It's because it's a great idea. I actually, try to go from that to see if we could have a private meeting, because the only thing that concerns me is sometimes, a session like that can also look like we're, trying to criticize, an organization, or that we're unhappy in, rather than it's a workshop, type scenario. So, but the thing is we can't have an executive session. I explained this to you because, we pay you. So,
Right.
But I don't know,
With Dave and all of us on our board, you guys, UK and Mark on our board, we can. I mean, obviously, those aren't forums of any kind for you guys, and we could sit down. Dave's on exec and Mark's on exec, and we can hammer those kinds of things out during those meetings. We're working on strategic planning, so we want a vision, we want a clear vision. We want to know what you expect.
well, and that was the other thing, the strategic plan
I
was what I was
think
gonna say too, is that was the goal of having the strategic plan, but having something that's more refined.
Mhm.
Because if you have to set expectations, be able to manage expectations, and so like, we do need to do that. But, really, I mean, there's a couple of things, and I think that's the other thing. And a few people have made that point, every person on this council has made this point before too, is that sometimes the foundation gets focused on too many things.
Oh, absolutely.
And so, if we can like at least set our expectations, like I said, I think the hotel is a great idea. And then the other thing just needs to be jobs, like we get one good pair, then we can go back and start looking at the other things and,
Right.
and there's.
Broadband's huge too.
Well,
Right now.
broadband absolutely is huge.
Yeah.
And then one thing I would like to say, and again, we haven't started to get the solar money coming in, but I'd like to go back and see what we can do with our infrastructure, just in our parks alone and the recreation side of Starke County, because one of the things that is absolutely true, and I will say that kind of on the side, and Justin's been with me on it too, is that we've been looking at opportunities for a long time that are available. And, it's not like the foundation hasn't tried either. And so the other thing that we've done a couple of times is realize there's a couple of things that we have a lot of strengths in Starke County. One of them is farming. The other one is the recreation, the tourism. And so, there may be some ways to kind of, you know, upgrade that as well. Like I've said before, personally, I think we have a really nice site at Bass Lake. I think the new park board, little by little, is getting really more and more in a groove on how to just manage that, to make it better. But then, I think the other direction in the county, there's an opportunity there and to have something more in Coons Lake. And then on the other side of the county, I think Sam Pierce doing a nice job with the new park areas that they're working on, things like that too. And I think as a county, I think we can partner with some of those things too, to embellish that and, you know, be more inviting for people, at least to start visiting here. And then it's a perpetual cycle. People start visiting, then they want to move here and they want to work here. So I think, you know, on the same token, together, we need to work on what we can, you know, incrementally also, instead of trying to do everything at once.
And you're talking about the exact same things that when we did the original survey 30 years ago, you're still talking about those things that would not only bring industry in, but upgrade our citizenry to be able to fill those jobs and keep them here.
Yeah.
Because the time that they spend on the road is time that they don't have to be councilman or city or whatever, or be involved with the schools or.
Well,
committees.
and something else comes to mind to me also with this is that I think some people are a little concerned that the school is taking such a substantial role now with what used to be skill students, school age, students. And so for me, I think that's great, because for me, ever since I've been on the council, the thing that I've always been concerned with is adult education. And I think if we create more adult workforce ready people, adult age people, that's another way we can attract people. Like I'm going to tell you, like there was one really great employer that we sat down with, Lisa and I, and the guy looked me right in the face. And, as a resident, somebody that grew up here, can you staff this if we come here? And I'm thinking, I'm saying yes, of course, like we can. Yeah, I'm saying that, but I'm, in the back of my head, I'm thinking that's only if we can get the people that are going outside the county working to come back here. But I'm saying, yes, we can do it. But the thing about Starke County is that we still have literacy problems. We still have adult people that don't have high school diplomas. So, I think there's still a very large footprint for, the way we can shift with skill because of the way it's charted. I mean, Bruce talked about its beginnings, and I think even the beginnings were more geared towards that, about putting a workforce together today.
Yeah.
The future is great, but the workforce today, right now, is where we're kind of really suffering, because everybody that looks at us says, you can't staff it. We'd love to come there. You've got plenty of green space. It's really nice. You don't have Starbucks or Target, but you've got a really nice county, but you don't have the people.
Right. Sure. And just as an FYI, yesterday we did finally get our year review out. So by looking at that, you can tell that we are very, very involved in a whole lot of things. And again, just trying to narrow our focus so that we can feel like we're making progress in a few things instead of just going from thing to thing and try to make a little impact. We want to make major impacts with some major things instead of getting caught in the minor things. So, anyway, the commissioners did approve based on this new updated that I sent everybody. So we're here for, see if you guys are good with approving the shares as a 2-year versus an annual.
Well, I will say the one thing about it is that we did budget the commissioners, or we set the commissioners a budget. You and I discussed this. We are going to change the way we budget, or at least the way we lay it out, the budget for the Economic Development Foundation and skill, because, it's a little broad strokes. If you just say, hey, here's 159,000, spend it how you want, just like the exceptions you had when we had it split differently before, when we said, hey, we want to, we'll still offer you this money, but, we want you to appropriate it with us. We want you to come talk to us because, there have been situations where we say, okay, well, hey, we'd love to fund that. But for example, we don't own your building. We're not going to put money in your building, but you need this for your project that you're going to be doing for your next evolution of this type of student or whatever else. We can fund that, for example, but those are the kind of things that we need to review as a council, as the fiscal body, just to make sure that we're funding the right things. That's our job. So we'll take a better look at that.
Right.
But I will say, I mean, I'm not, like I said before, I'm not necessarily opposed to the 2 years. I don't see the concern, but I guess because of the pressure we put on the foundation, that's why there was fear of it not being a multi-year contract. I mean, again, for, the commissioners have already approved this, but really in reality, the concern of the council is authority and also survivorship of contracts. And normally when people are elected officials, it's better a year at a time. You can put things in there about auto renewal and other, things like that, but you're just safer than, rather than selling. futures.
That sounds like.
So is there any reason, I mean, are we wanting to do something different or are we ready to act on that contract?
Well, again, like I said, personally, for me, I'm okay with the 2 years, but what I would suggest is for those, if there's anybody still that's holding out that about the 2 year thing, that we did maybe think about an auto renewal, that we still have the option, between the first year. But the bottom line is regardless, there's enough wording here where if we wanted to fire up, I don't want to scare you by saying that. If we wanted to fire up anyway, that we still could, you know what I'm saying? So,
I told Lisa when we talked, I said, personally, I don't like the 2 year deal. I don't like it one bit, but I told her I would not make waves. And if everybody else thinks the 2 year deal is a good deal, I'll go right along with it. I have no
Well, and
problem.
what you talked to me about is not wanting to extend a contract further than your term. And
Exactly.
that really made sense.
Because I don't think that's not fair to anybody.
no. The other thing is we're elected to review things. Like if we have a 1 year contract, then we review it every year.
Right.
All a 2 year contract does is just give it the opportunity just to, to slide through but the commissioners made that
But
choice.
we would still have oversight, correct?
We still have oversight, but if you have it in the contract that says you have to do it annually, it forces everybody to do their job.
What
On
about
our side.
approving 1 year or 2 years, but the second year is contingent upon coming up with a more focused oversight plan, like we were talking about? Then the 2 year is still a very viable option, but there's going to be this condition precedent to it being
Yeah,
auto renewed.
Where they have to show us some financial,
That would provide us with a guaranteed oversight on an annual basis, but then they would know that as long as they fulfilled, that this condition was fulfilled, then that second year would be renewed.
I like that idea, but that just becomes a 1 year contract then, and unfortunately, the commissioners have already approved it. Do we have any authority to do what Cassie's?
They told her what they wanted changed, but they haven't approved it yet.
But we could highly suggest that you bring us a budget time, couldn't we?
But they told her that they would approve it on these changes, but they have not technically approved the contract yet.
here's the problem. If we change it like her idea, which I agree with wholeheartedly, and then the commissioners don't approve it, you're not gonna have a
So back
contract
to
on March first.
Right, exactly, in our contract.
Well, I mean,
I'm not saying we give into it for that reason.
Well, I guess
Then
that's a
why
good,
don't you hold back the funding contingent upon?
Yeah, the funding for the
Well,
second year contingent upon the receipt and approval. of
They're gonna-
the-
fair enough. Then the commissioners can go. That's a good idea. Sounds good to you?
Agree.
Yeah,
Yeah, that way you have to do your job.
and we're gonna. we're gonna help you. Oh, boy.
I'll find another.
No, we need to do our job. Our job is to review these things and take a look and see what's happening, because we're the elected officials. We're the one giving you the money. So we need to make, it's contingent on us, or contingent on our, efforts and prudence to do that. So is that a motion, Cassie?
Sure.
And I think maybe not to take away from anybody else, but I think Todd was probably the strong second on that.
Yeah, I'll definitely second that. That's a very good idea. Yeah.
You want an auto renewal type of thing in there, or just always make it a 2 year, but
Let's just stick on the funding side and let's not complicate it, because then if like somebody just said, I don't know if it's Todd or Howard's, but if we mess it up, then you're without a contract, so.
Yeah, I said.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Dave, my question is it to do just like we're doing, is it extra work for them to just stay on track like we are, to just do it annually? I mean, it's once a year. It's not like we do it 10 times a year. Is it a big issue for them? Do they have to do extra paperwork or something? Or is it the uncertainty of just not knowing?
I think it was more the uncertainty, right? I mean,
uncertainty, and our, we have to talk about the end of the year. What do we want to, what can we propose for next year kind of thing? If we just had something that was similar every year, maybe someday we'll ask for more funding, but other than that, if we can kind of keep it.
Well, probably the thing that's the most dissimilar is the budget. So probably what Cassie's proposing, I mean, into perpetuity is probably a good way to look at it, is that we'll deal with it on our side, on the funding side, but then at the commissioners, from the contractual side, this is the direction they want to go, as long as we feel comfortable with it. And it doesn't look like there's anything, otherwise there that, it's pretty straightforward. It's a pretty simple contract, really.
Yeah, that's fair.
We have our attorney, obviously writing and reviewing and he's, not raising anything, to our attention that we should be concerned about.
And we've got two different bodies, one obviously the executive, the other is the funding body. I mean, I'm trying to track what we're trying to do here too, and I'm struggling to do it. Nothing against, I mean, there's a lot of different ideas here, but ultimately when we sign it, the commissioners voted on it, it's 2 years. You guys, I guess you could choose not to fund it, but at that point, if you choose going into year 2 not to fund, you've got a signed contract that talks about it being a 2-year agreement. It'd be very, very difficult from the funding side of things to say the county executive has approved this contract. Now we're not going to fund it for the second year.
But if the wordage in the contract, the verbiage states that it's contingent on them meeting.
Oh, yeah, I mean, if you change the contract, you can do that. What you have in front of you is not, I don't think it'll suffice for what you guys.
No, and I think that's what we want to do, but right, then we want to add that to the contract, right?
Yes,
mean,
that's what I would.
Yeah.
Propose.
Yeah, that should be added on there saying just what Cassie stated. That way they still have their funding they have a 2-year contract. But the second year is contingent on funding based on them meeting the contract item.
Like, yeah, but they'll work with whomever to come up.
And I don't
with
think
this
that should be a
focus.
big deal.
Well, they are doing a strategic plan. The foundation is doing the.
Right,
Everybody's gonna be involved in reviewing it, so.
we're going to have a half-day strategic planning session with the board probably in April to, again, I mean, we've been putting
So,
on meetings.
I mean, just wanting them to fulfill the benchmarks that are already in the contract. You guys wanting to propose additional because it's just fulfilling what's already they're contractually obligated to do, and they breach it. It's a breach of contract. You terminate it. But if you're saying you want benchmarks over and above what's listed in the contract, then I think that's what we need to put in there. I mean, if we're in month 6, they breach the contract, go, hey, you breached, we're terminating it. But if you're saying, hey, we want not just A, B, and C that's listed in there, but we want X, Y, and Z too, that's what needs to go in the contract. I guess I'm just trying to decipher what benchmarks that aren't in there you guys want them to hurdle. So I think that'll be easier from her standpoint if she has to revise it.
What I've been hearing is the concern is that we vote on this like lump sum of money that just kind of goes to the Economic Development Foundation, and then the council doesn't really have any oversight over how it's being spent, and it's taxpayer money. I'm misstating something, forgive me, because this is new to me, but I've been talking with some people and being contacted with some people about it. And so if we require them to come up with some sort of like Bruce said, there's what's the mission here? So some sort of a framework to say, these are going to be our priorities, and this is the funding that's going to go to the priorities. And then there are these other projects too, and this funding is going to be allocated to this. Then as long as that's provided by a meeting towards the end of the year, then the funding for the second year would be provided. And I think that would need to go in. We just need to be fleshed out.
Would that mean anything more than just, because you have to build a budget for your board? Would that mean any more than, we've got Dave and Kay on your board, and I know Dave will be very involved. I think some safe measures are put in just from that, but
I mean,
is there any reason why you can't submit your budget for us to look at also? Of course, you guys, the two of them guys are already gonna see it, so.
item 4 of the contract. In essence, kind of does say that, but I will say this, I would never seen an audit of the foundation ever.
This is why I mentioned earlier that.
So right there, in technicality, they're probably already in
Oh,
violation
you
of the
can
contract.
see our audits, they're all there. Everything is there. We get audited every year. Everyone has been clean since 06 when I started.
Well, I'm sure they are, Lisa.
But honestly,
I'm just
anybody,
looking, I'm just looking at the way that we can use this contract,
Right.
like Justin said, and not going through a whole bunch of other stuff.
Sure.
It may take a fast March first step.
I know what you're talking about, though, and the commissioners of the past have complained that audits were passed out. And then they were collected at the door before people walked out,
Yes.
and there's always been, that's what they're.
yeah,
referring.
but they're there for anybody, and we say that at every meeting. All of our financials stay in our office, but anybody on our board or anybody can come in and sit down and take a look at our audits, our budgets, our financial statements.
The only thing I gotta say against that is if we're using public money and somebody still asking what I have to do, take pictures of it, remember everything that's written down. And so here's what they did with this money. Just a
Well,
minute,
that's
let
why
me
I think
phone
the
tell you.
best thing to do too is at the end of the year to say, hey, this is what we spent your money on, and I think Lisa's unopposed to that.
Right, and I will tell you, we are a public-private entity, 501c6.
Right.
So we are funded by the county, the city, the towns. But we're also funded by, not a lot, but by the utilities. If we had a bigger number of manufacturers, say like in LaPorte County, we could go to our manufacturers and say, you know, this is what we do for you guys, would you consider? And that's something our board has talked about for several years, because we honestly would prefer not to be government funded if we didn't have to be. I would love to be privately funded.
And I will say, commissioners of the past have said that many times
Sure.
about the foundation becoming
And
self-sufficient.
we have, I mean,
And-
we've tried different avenues. We've tried to get grant, and we can't get a lot of
Yeah.
grants at the.
But that is true, they have brought that up, but the other thing is, we get that one big payer in here that has 200 to 500 jobs that are, you know, paying 3 times what we're. Two times what we're paying now,
Right.
you know, that could be, you know, an entity too that contributes more to the foundation, I mean.
Well, and we were kind of hoping maybe the solar, there would be something, but beyond the economic development agreement with the county. That would be just for economic development foundation, but I haven't seen anything like that. I didn't see any.
Well, it's already there, it's 159,000 that comes from the county, like, we're already funding you, like, that's our money,
Yeah.
we're already paying. you,
But I
so
mean,
that's
like
helping
a
us
separate
afford to be able to
entity,
pay
like a
you.
private. Like a
Just for
private
the
entity.
foundation?
Like if they're a corporation, just like JW Hicks is a corporation. If we went to them and said, we, you know. These are some of the things we do for you as the solar developer.
That's
What
part of your
you-
contract to help economic development.
Well,
That's what
it is,
it's our-
but
that's
so,
what it's
so
county
do you
money.
not want, that's what my questions.
Yeah.
So do you not want us to be private where we, because we do a lot of things for a lot of.
No,
industries.
I think the point is that that's revenue for us, and we're already
No,
paying.
No,
So
but
I
you're
mean, that,
getting that, but
Right.
could we get that from them as a corporation, as if we went out to JW
This
Hicks?
thing is a private.
As a
contract between
private.
you and the- Oh, I mean, if you guys. can
Yeah, as a
negotiate
private,
that.
yeah.
I was gonna say
exactly.
that you would be precluded, I mean, you could do that on your own.
That's what I meant.
We can't,
I-
we can't prevent you from that.
They're like any other industry.
But they can't say they're gonna.
See if you
take
get
half.
159,000.
No,
Yeah.
there was.
That money.
Sort of thinking the items and let's go say, hey, you know, we'll work in conjunction. You get them to do a promotion, but We have to have some consideration here. I mean, that's what I do part of negotiating for you guys.
Right.
And then when they approach the county, they said, county, this is what we're giving you under an economic development agreement. And by the way, we have a private contract with your economic development foundation. They're paid on $30,000 a year. I mean, that's fantastic. That'd be
Yeah,
fantastic. It's not
Exactly.
taking
That,
away
yeah,
from
that's what, yeah, same sort of thing that we could, you know, if we could work with some of our local manufacturers, that's what I meant from as private. Not coming from the economic development agreement that's with the county, but as a separate private. And we keep looking at creative ways to
Well,
bring in money.
so I think if I'm hearing what Justin's saying is like, Kathy's idea is a great idea, but we're already agreeing by signing the contract that we're gonna fund X amount of dollars. We're not increasing it. In those 2 years. So we're kind of stuck for the 2 years, really. I mean, more or less. I mean, even if we have that wording, it really doesn't put any teeth in
Well,
it.
and I think what Cassie and I were trying to, we're viewing at it from an attorney's perspective, like, the more way, it's easier. I mean, someone comes into my office and says, I have this contract with this company and they breached it. You know, the more benchmarks you're able to point at, it's just, you know, you'll provide the appropriate level of professional service. I mean, when it starts with like fungible terms that, you know,
Right.
we're gonna say you breached it, your attorney's gonna come back to me and say, oh, no, we didn't breach it. In fact, you guys were wrong, it's back and forth. But if we say we want a financial report, this and this, it's pretty easy to point to those things, because otherwise we're just saying back and forth. You breach this fungible term that we
Yeah.
think we, you know, so.
Well, are there any commissioners? Tony's the only one online. There are no commissioners online. I mean, the only thing that makes me a little nervous is that if we change the wording of the contract. And then the commissioners don't like what we change. You know, I mean, the commissioners told us that they were all for the 600 East project, and then they had the commissioners meeting the other day and they say they don't want to do it. You know what I'm saying? But they told us they wanted to do it.
I mean, the only thing I can say about is changing like that. It's still ultimately a 2-year contract. Ultimately. And it's just a matter of getting that verbiage in there. And I don't know why the commissioners would disagree with that, because we're doing our job by reviewing how the monies are spent.
Do you have it in your head already what because I mean, I'm willing to entertain a motion. I just want to make sure that we know what we're going to write down to propose to the commissioners then on Tuesday.
Well, I think it's.
Monday.
Oh, I mean, they're actually going on President's Day? Oh, okay. Well, they may
Hey,
be
Dave.
going on Martin Luther King. Yes, sir.
So real quick, I mean, so we do this contract, they can still be fired, this, and this. So what actually changes other than there's a contract that can still be, we still oversee everything? Is it me, or does it sound like we're kind of just basically making it more difficult, but it's the same result? Or is that just me not hearing it properly?
I think it's whether or not we're trying to define hurdles that we can point at and say, you've not done this, we're not gonna renew it for
Yeah.
the second year.
Yeah, it's more of a.
Yeah, I don't think it's the
more of
same
a broader
as-
difference.
I think
Yeah, it's more of a more acute definition of it.
If the Economic Development Foundation says, are you terminating our contract? These are items 1, 2, and 3 that you said we needed to do and you're not renewing it. And they have recourse against us, but you know, as it's written, if we're just saying, oh, you're not providing the level of service that we contracted for, then we play the back and forth game that yes, you are, no, you aren't.
That's a good point.
That doesn't mean anything.
Lisa, how long have you done this position?
I have been at the foundation since '06. I have been in this position for 2 years. I was the assistant.
Pretty good track record.
And well, and on it, I mean, there was a standing contract in place forever and ever. It was going on and on for about 5 years ago. And then now it's.
It's hard to make a motion because
Lisa, my,
I thought that was-
speaking, I don't know what your track record. It's
You know, with
from a new
foundations.
council person's perspective, I don't know that the Economic Foundation does have that
It was at
great of
one
an
time.
overall track.
That's where we
I
gotta
mean,
get, that's where we
not
gotta
saying
get a
people
vision.
There's an
But
empty water tower.
specifically
It was north.
bringing certain projects to fruition, I think that's questionable. Absolutely, and I think
Now, one of the things I want to, and I know I am very passionate about what I do and about these companies here. And to me, a win is when a local company expands. Norton Packaging has expanded 3 times since I've been in this position. JW Hicks owns just about the whole industrial park. They just bought the toll building last summer. They keep expanding, not a ton of jobs, but they
that's
keep
why I
expanding.
qualify to say, I don't know more.
Right.
But prior to you taking your position,
Right.
I've been aware of some horror stories.
Oh,
Yeah, and she's following in some pretty,
Yeah, you're working.
Pretty
to
dark
clean some of
times,
it up.
yes.
I don't want you to take my comment as a dischargement of your job.
You liked over today.
And I'll tell you, I do this. I love my job. And I will do anything I can for this county, anything. Because I grew up, here. I raised most of my kids, most of their lives here, and all I want to do is see good things happen here. And I'm sorry I get emotional, but I get very emotional about my job and about my community.
Well, and I think as you're sitting there and we're all discussing this, I think my natural response would probably feel like I'm being attacked in some way or being quite like my integrity is being called into question. And that statement I made was, again, not calling your integrity into question. But I just keep hearing over and over again, even in my short tenure here, about the community's question about us having a more active role in oversight, not necessarily dictating how money's just being spent, but just maybe more information, more knowledge. And now, and also though, I want to say based on the emails I've received from you guys, I see you as making a really concerted effort to provide a lot of information. In fact, sometimes I can't keep up. with
I
it.
was gonna say, in the past, there was not a lot of transparency, and I probably overdo it on the emails, but I want people to see that we're doing something. And I feel like we're doing something very viable.
And, like I told you yesterday, like that's not in question. And I think, Cassie's trying to reaffirm that. So please try not to take it. We have these
Don't take it
discussions that
personal.
way. I mean,
Not at all.
Take things personal, sorry.
just like a CEO of a company goes through the same kind of things, or, the top leadership of anything, like that's part of the job.
And I
But
think when people take things personally, though, I mean, yeah, you might be more emotional, but from what I found just among like my fellow attorneys, like a lot of times that makes a person a better leader, worker, that their heart's in it too. So
Yeah.
when somebody's
Yeah.
cold and jaded and callous, then I start questioning like, well, do you really care about what's happening?
Right.
So, and I'm not questioning that at all about you.
Well,
So,
Well, my hope would be that we could give you a more focused vision. So you could hit the target easier if you know what the target is. And after talking with Dave and others on the board, I just think that that's the best thing we can do for you, is give you a description of what we expect.
personally, like the other thing I want to say though is that, again, 7 people on this board, it's our job that if we see something that we think needs to be in place, we should make those recommendations to the commissioners. I don't think anything that I've heard is that daunting or that bad that the commissioners would vote it down. So I think that we should have input on this too. That's the job of the council. So I mean, if you guys think we should have some kind of wording in here, let's work it out with Justin so we know what it is, and let's make the recommendation to the commissioners. And it sounds like we're all on the same page. Foundation's on the same page,
We have to.
council's on the same page. We're on the same page.
And that's fine. I just don't know if you can get that done by 9:30 Monday morning.
I'll tell you, most of the burden falls on Lisa. She's the one that amends all those things and sends.
Yeah.
them to me. She does all the
I
work.
know Word document, but I don't know what you guys want to put in it, so.
So if you do want something in it, we need to.
No, that's what I mean, is that if it's just a few word changes, like you could send that for Monday morning, and it sounds like we're all on the same page here.
We just have to put.
You want to take another shot at how you would want to say that?
do I want to here now or?
Yeah.
As far as your motion,
Probably not, because I'd probably babble. But I could probably try to come up with something in writing, by tomorrow, so.
Well, I think we would have a motion now, though. I mean, or at least,
yeah.
Well, it's
Consensus,
hard for me to state the actual language though. Without, because I feel like we've identified this goal or this objective or this need. But it's still a little bit amorphous, like floating around out there. So. That's what I was gonna ask too, is, like, we're sort of up against the wall here time wise, so maybe. Next year.
I was just gonna say, here's my other thought. If we approve now. As a council, or even we're all voters too, we're all constituents too. That if we're not happy, we can voice that anytime. You know what I'm saying? And we can raise that with the commissioners as a council, but also just as an individual, like a resident of Starke County. So I don't know, like maybe we are trying to create too much in too short a time now. But. I mean, even though it's not, some things are not in the contract, I think more clearly tonight told Lisa what we expect, what we're looking for.
Is this something we can approve today with the thought of in the future adding this to the
2 years.
Well, we've got 2 years to think about it, but I mean,
because if we are up against it, I don't want to hold anybody else.
I mean, I don't want them to go unfunded and then have a contract for another, for a month. I'll admit, I don't know how that would work if we don't approve something now. I would hope it would be.
well, again, we're funding a total number to each, but when we go into budget workshops, the only thing we can't do is reduce that. We can put more teeth on how that money looks, structurally.
It's,
We can work on it from that.
I'm wanting to make a motion.
Can't change them.
I'm wanting to make a motion to approve this contract as it is, okay, but I don't know how we can put on there saying that with this motion, the council expects, I don't want to use the word extraordinary, I'm trying to think of the correct word. Something in reference to the financial transparency. That we demand, either, that we require the financial transparency be directed to us. As we feel, if it's not, it's a breach of the contract. I don't know if that can even make any sense. You know what I'm trying to say, but I don't want to say it.
Even though it says you have access to anything.
Well, I don't think it's only us. I think any person in the county should have access to it.
Want them to bring it to like a council meeting.
It's become public record.
Instead of putting the onus on one of us to go over there, because I'll admit, you get busy during.
Oh,
I used to be next door. to you.
Right, yeah, but it was.
But, yeah, but maybe if it's actually, the effort is put on the foundation to send those out via email and then.
Well, that was our concern. Do we want financials going out by email?
Why?
We could, well,
All the county financials are public
I
record.
will say, like, for example.
Well,
You're just asking for the 89,000, right?
Yeah, I don't care what you do. I don't care who you buy drinks for, hotel rooms, I at the bureau. I don't care. I don't care about that.
Just of the 89,000, what is?
Yeah, the rest of the money you've got, that's none of our business.
well, and you guys are the major funder. I mean, you are our largest funding source. So, you know,
Cause I've heard too many horror stories, Lisa, about, they said, you guys got a big $10,000 bonus last year. Well, I don't know if that's true or not. And I don't know where that money came from if you did. So I don't know that. I've had several people say that to me. And I said, I have no idea. They're like, you don't know where our county money goes? I'm going, no, I don't. And that's a very awkward situation to be in.
So maybe
Seems
the
like
only
that's already defined here.
It appears that it is, but
Well,
I don't
maybe
think
the
it's ever
change-
been.
Sorry.
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Maybe it just, paragraph 4 just needs to say as a condition for accepting public funds. Instead of saying full access to the annual audit, that the foundation would forward a copy to each council member. So I don't care if it's through email, snail mail or what, but as long as we get it. Again, then it's not, the onus isn't put on us to go over there and make a request. And then rather, instead of on request, they would provide access to financial records. Maybe that should just be distributed on some sort of calendar basis.
A summary,
Yeah,
because,
at least so that we can answer our constituents' questions, like what is the money being spent?
I sit on a couple of boards and there's a finance committee for those boards. And then the finance committee, presents we go through every board's picture, but then there's a summary that comes from the financial committee. And that's what goes to the main board.
do you guys expect that the money that you give us is what is used for our salaries? Because we do get paid.
No, I expect that you should get paid from it.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think what I'm saying, X amount goes towards 80% of your, we talked about this yesterday. He's just talking about the same thing I tried to explain yesterday.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter what it is, it's just,
No.
this is what it went for.
Yeah.
Right.
Boom,
Yeah. But the only thing you have to keep in mind here is, I'm gonna tell you right now, you send me that email, I'm not gonna forward it to 500,000 people.
I know.
But if somebody asks me and they wanna see it, I'm gonna show them.
Mhm.
Plain and simple. Because I think everybody has a right to know how the county money is spent. What you do with the money you get from whoever, I don't care. That's your business as a corporation. All I'm concerned about is the money that we are giving you. If you tell me that it's going to buy drinks for everybody in a conference, so what? At least we know. That's part of doing business. I work for a consulting firm. I know how it works.
Spoken from somebody with all those pictures of the umbrellas in the glass.
Yeah, I'll give you anyone.
So, it sounds like then that we're setting an expectation for Article 4 here. I think Lisa's understanding what we're expecting. I mean, then what, it sounds like we move forward then.
Okay, so what's going on?
So we're looking for a motion then to, as is for the contract.
Without minorly changing the language of four to state that that information would be actually provided.
We've asked for it in a public meeting and she's agreed to it. So I mean, she's legally bound.
It's only a 2-year contract. I think the foundational probably, if you get to the end of year one, they don't provide it. They know if they're not gonna get funding after year two, they'll probably keep it.
There you go. That's true.
Go ahead. No, I'm not.
Are you looking at Cassie or?
Oh. Well, without at least changing the language, I don't want to be the one to make the motion.
I'm not making it.
I'll make the motion that we accept the 2-year contract as read. And we'll accept your offer to meet the terms of Article number 4.
I'll second that.
Second from Todd. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, Dennis.
Was that a nay online?
No, it was an I went with it.
Okay, sorry. All right, I thought I heard nay. Did you think? Okay.
I can.
Um,
And the only other thing is on broadband, I know you guys did set aside some ARPA money for infrastructure, and I think I heard you say earlier that it was $1 million. That you had set aside.
infrastructure is $1 million, yes.
Okay, if there is anything we can do for broadband infrastructure out of that, that would be fantastic.
Well, I'd like to see what she's looking for. Did you ask her if she was the one I was supposed to be talking to through Pressel before? Or did
I haven't even spoken to
Oh,
her, but
no.
I am trying
So I
to
saw you
set up
said
a
that about
meeting
lunch.
with us. I
Let's find
got
out.
a notice today, so hopefully we can sit down with her. There was an article on the WFBT about a nonprofit in Burke County and how they're moving broadband.
broadband picture falls under infrastructure?
Yes.
But let's see what her proposal is, the kind of money she's talking. That's.
So if it's not something they would.
We're not gonna fund Surf Wireless to come and make $1 million, because that's the other thing.
Yeah.
I don't want people in Starke County to have to pay $150 a month. for
No,
broadband.
And that's
Well,
why I hear
I am
that.
absolutely against that.
Right.
Affordable's fine, but look, I mean.
That's what I wanted to speak on real quickly. I read through that, unless the one program, unless you're on a government entitlement, you don't qualify for that reasonable broadband.
And there's
That we don't need. We need everybody in this county equally qualifying for the same price.
another thing to that whole thing too.
That's
You
why I
have
feel.
discounted
Yes.
telephone through.
And
Because
not
now
all
that program
$150
can't be full.
Oh, really?
One or the other.
Oh, that's,
Right.
okay. All right, but yes, I agree.
Thank you.
Affordable. I switched to 4-way. I
Me too.
love it. It's
I've had it
way
too.
better than CenturyLink.
I've had it.
And I paid $58. So.
I paid 39.
Oh, I got it. 49.
It always comes in when you're getting it in.
All right.
You're getting, continuing 3 months, you're getting this, you're getting SNAP money, and you qualify. What about the people that are working 2 jobs?
Yeah.
All right.
Got one item left here.
Yeah.
That was my only, 2 cents. I don't think personally, I'm gonna beat Mr. Hernandez up over the other thing, the Saber thing, so. But since that kind of preceded you, but, I think just personally for me, one of the things that I just see glass half full with what's going on with the school, because I've heard that there's, it's perceived as some negativity from the skill side. I think the opportunity to kind of shift some things over to focus more on the adult population here is huge. So that way we're, more turnkey when companies come here and approach us and want to locate here. And a lot of these things can be trained on the job, but they don't want to come if they don't have a high school diploma. If they don't know how to read, things like that. So I think those CDL programs, there's just a lot of things.
We are starting in the next month, the CDL Class B program. So we have an instructor. We're ready to go. He's working on his air brake license as soon as he has that. And we're ready to go for that. Initially, we want to start with 5 people. Because that's all the class size he feels comfortable with to start with, so I put it out there to the schools.
Fire's a lot to handle. I've taught fire, driving classes over the years, and big classes are hard to
So we
manage.
figured we put it out to the schools first, who are bus drivers, and then see where it goes from there. I know we'd like to do the highway department. I know you were in need of people, but a couple of meetings ago, you said that you had all the people that you need.
I haven't opened. Don't jinx it. It goes up and down, And then, I know Mark Shepard does a lot of training for bus drivers too. I mean, I know that.
Well, he's gonna be my instructor for skill after
Good.
hours to
That's
do the collectively, the schools all in one place at one time.
Good.
We're also considering starting a adult diesel mechanic program. All of our instructors are diesel mechanics. We need to get them certified through ASE, but once that happens, we'd like to do an adult diesel mechanic program after hours. So that's in the works for us.
The only thing I have, sir, is just the same thing I told Lisa, so I don't want to be discriminatory by not saying it to you, is during budget time, budget workshop time, we're just gonna look at how we can do our jobs better on how the money's spent. The commissioner said, okay, here it is, you can have it. We just, again, we can't change the amount because it's in the contract. It'll certainly change just, how we know what it's spent on. So we'll be doing that. And then, it doesn't sound like you have any issues with that. So, I believe with the skill contract, though, we do not have a signature on that. So, I mean, this is more just a.
They asked for changes and they haven't met again. So I was Rachel informed me that because it was multiple year deal that I had to also go in front of the council.
What are the changes?
What were the changes? I asked for $80,000 and they said we would do 70.
Well, this contract says 70.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, maybe it was like, okay, all right, okay, sorry. Okay.
Right, but we have to approve the dollar.
Always invite him into the budget workshops. And talk about that.
See how we can make it grow to 80.
Yeah, no.
Say how we can make it work.
No, the idea is we're doing it, but I think it behooves us too to start helping you figure out some ways on other funding sources too, just like the foundation. I mean, the idea would be that you don't have to be beholden to us, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And that would be great too. I mean, there's a lot of benefit. I mean, personally, like I said, I'm not gonna go on the whole lease thing because that would have been a lot of money in your pocket. But for example, I brought this up before. Indiana University and Notre Dame hit me up for money every year. You follow your students. There are people that have kids that moved away from Starke County that aren't, necessarily earning here, but they would probably give skill a couple $100 every year. Like this is an example. Like there's a lot of other things that can bring money into.
Sure. And we do that for scholarships for our students at the end of the year when upon graduation. We also have this year we've made a partnership with Bailmaster out of Crown Point. Through our adult welding classes, we were able to supply them with some welders out of our last class, and they have donated steel to us throughout the year to the point where Skill has not had to buy 1 single ounce of steel. So we usually get it in 1,000-pound increments because that's all my truck will carry. But we've probably got 6-7 loads so far of steel from them. Also, I made an agreement with the MAC Center for the Fire and Rescue Program that we're going to be starting this next year to be able to use their facilities for free for all of our training and using their props and everything for free.
It's a great facility. I've used it a lot.
Yeah. So, we that's 6 students who are advancing. I don't know if you all seen the WKVI and leader article. We have 6 students advancing to state. So our training that we're doing is very good. We would have had 9 had our students decided that they were going to do well in the written test because they were like the top team in the welding division. So we missed out on that a little bit. And also we do have money coming in through our adult wellness program. We try to do 4 classes per year and generally doing 10 to 12 students per class, sometimes less, because we're not going to not do a program if we're going to make money, just because we're not making all the money that we want to make. So like this, we just started class 30 on September 6th, and we only had 8 students in that, but financially, it's a positive for us.
I support your program. I'm not against, we talk, and I support this. But I do have a question. Does the industry in Stark County provide any financial support to skill right now?
No.
I got a little bit of a problem with that, not with you, but with
With the industry.
our weld shops, our manufacturers that need welders. Maybe they should be maybe looking into.
Well, I don't want to go back on my soapbox about that.
Well, yeah.
They were trying to fund that.
Oh, yeah,
A little skin in the game.
right. I mean, it's something to look at in the future.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody needs,
But Kay's right.
40
Cruise-
welders.
Cruise is expanding.
Cruise,
You know, they still have, I mean, obviously other than painters and other.
But, you know,
mechanics too, but
again, I support this, but industry coming into the county.
Well,
And they'll come to us and want a tax abatement.
you know, but I think you raise a good point too, though, is. You know, industry is not going to fund something if they're not asked. I guess the question would be, why
Right.
does it skill ask? Like in Cruise, for example, like, hey, you guys wanna. You know, support us a little bit. I mean, we just put Lisa on the same carpet, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, there's a chance there.
But maybe they'd consider it.
Right, so what I propose to Cruz is that starting next year, our seniors are going to have to put in 75 hours each of a skill-based education. So basically they got it, they can do it through an internship, or we can what I'm hoping to do is be able to get some businesses like, and if I approach Cruz, I approach Galvab and Winamac also about it. They have they buy small parts from other companies. Why can't Skill make your small parts? You know, so I've had some ideas like that. Like to get in a partnership with traffic control. Maybe we can help them. They're always building sign stands. Maybe we can build those sign stands for them. You know, different things like that to maybe bring in a little income to skill through work-based learning.
Or just, yeah, send your people over there because they're always hiring too, like they're short staffed. Yeah.
Hey, Jim.
And our kids do go over there.
The internships you mentioned, have you guys done a lot of talking or planning, like, you know, if they're gonna be paid or unpaid?
They can go either way, but we would prefer if they're paid,
Yeah, I was.
because it gives the kids an incentive to be there every day.
Yeah, and like when it's an unpaid internship, what ends up, I mean, I've read articles on this, how you know, wealthy people, wealthy families, it's not that difficult for them to take advantage of an unpaid internship
Mhm.
because the child gets money from home, but you know, especially the kids in your program, our community's not especially affluent, and so I hope that they're gonna.
Yeah, so a few meetings ago, Abby Lock Monday was here talking about their expansion. I've made some contacts with her. I had her come visit our automotive technology facility. I had her talk to the students, both the first and second year students, and talk about the opportunities that are coming. This last week, she offered to partner with us to do some specific board training through an online program so that she can get workers out of our classrooms into her facility. Who else have we, I have, this may not be great for the county, but I have Subaru of Indiana, human resources person come and talk to our kids soon about the opportunities that are there for our skills.
Those are the ones you hit up to donate though after.
Right, and well, I have, I'm trying to get some cars from them so we can do training.
Why can't some of our municipalities, our sheriff's department or whatever, why are they not supporting you through some maintenance? I don't,
Technically, you have to be ASE certified to work on a pursuit vehicle, and so that's why we brought that up with the skill before.
And that would only be a
certified, yeah, that's right. Then it ties the instructor up on something that's not individually so instructional, but we have actually.
but even on the maintenance side of it, the lubrication side and those things, you
pretty
need
sure
their
it has to be
certification.
ASE.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure, but if you help.
We should look at it, we should look at it.
I would like
again.
to.
Yeah, we should look at it.
I will.
If,
That was the pushback.
I have my.
All right.
That's all right.
They
Oh, yeah.
were talking about, trying to create some maybe more programs for adult students. So one of my questions would be like, when an adult student is interested in a program there, how can they pay for it? Is it a lump sum, or do they qualify in any way for?
We will take payments for a welding program, for those who are self.
Bless you.
A lot of our students come from the work one, and then work one pays for their classes.
Are you thinking of getting like cooling, refrigeration, cooling and heating?
It would be nice, but we don't have a classroom right now.
This year there was a major change in cooling, on the outside air conditioning that was gonna be having soon. There, hopefully, God, you're I'd like to.
I would move to approve the contract for skill.
Would you like?
I'll
a second? Okay, I was gonna say, if that was, you're gonna be. Okay, we'll say discussion. We have motion, second discussion, go ahead.
Paragraph 4, where it talks about financial transparency, can we make it clear that the expectations we place on the development foundation would also follow through to skill?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that's fair.
And then next time we'll make Jim go first, so we give him the hard time, and then.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay, I can send it over. If you want my.
We made Jim cry last year, right? So I already got it too.
You did it.
Are we talking annual?
I think that's. Or as request, I mean, it already says as request, but as far as the.
I do financials for my board every month, so
Can I talk now? I won't talk long, Rachel, I promise.
She's hungry.
Oh my. Me personally, and as a county official, I support this wholeheartedly. But I have some reserves. Such as Dave does, we have some things less sore, some bad spots in our mouth, and that happens. And I will tell you the one thing. That leaves a really bad spot in my mouth that makes me want to vote no against it, even though it doesn't matter. Is the request that came into us for us to fund your building. It's nothing against skill, it's nothing against anything, but it's no different than Dave Pearman coming here, hey. I'm mowing the grass at the cemetery, hey township, you think you can like give me some more money so I can repair my house? Yeah. And that's not the way it works.
Yeah, it's not commingled like
But
that.
but when you came in, you asked for those boards, right?
Yeah.
And you got that. But you still got the other stuff, I vote against it, and I'm not ashamed that I voted against it. And if it comes up again, I will vote against it again.
But how do you, because monies and funds are commingled correctly from the private or from whatever revenues they have coming in versus the government's, the county government's money going in. So once it's commingled, how do you determine what money is being paid for what?
We had authority then. The problem is the commissioners, with the way the commissioners have it this year, going back, kind of the old way, we don't. But
Get
we
oversight.
do, when we do our budget workshop, we can ask for that. We can also ask as a partner to the county to budget, for them to budget that way, though, like focus on things that are skill pays for those. Things that are, and so, I mean, I think he understands, what we're asking for too. He was a little new then. And I think what it was is, and don't take this the wrong way, but you've got people you report to and they're saying, hey, the county's got this money. It's sitting there and it's budgeted. So let's find something to spend it on. That's what happens when, funds are there like that. And so you did what they told you to. you hadn't interacted with us and seen that situation where we don't want to do that. Like, we don't want to support an asset that we don't own. That's just how it works.
Well, and I was out there while you guys were doing that, but I was thinking to myself, the funds are commingled. You should have probably perhaps ear notched some of your own money to do that and then come in and ask for something else.
That's the way to handle it. You're right. Yeah. I think you understand that's our expectation.
You guys vote.
We had a motion and a second. Was there any additional from anybody else? Howard, did you get everything that you needed?
I'm good.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there any
Aye.
opposed?
I think that lady.
Okay, I'm hungry. We'll start real fast then. I thought you were hungry.
I gave
Thank
everybody,
you. I will contact you maybe a month or still.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm an ally, not an enemy.
I know. Yeah, you're welcome anytime.
I gave everybody information on your district meeting. If you want me to register, let me know within the next couple of days. Also second, I need 3 representatives to come here for a presentation because I'm looking into a new timekeeping system.
Did you decide what day you're gonna do that?
No, it'll be within the next couple of months, not anytime soon.
We can decide at our action meeting.
You,
Well, yeah. 2 other volunteers to talk about our time clock. What the problem, the issue with this is we don't really have a really good way to watchdog everybody on whether they're meeting, properly to the hours they're supposed to be working. There's something that Rachel is taking a look at that would, make that much more efficient. We want to have presentations for that. So a couple other people,
I'll do it as long, I mean, I just.
Okay. I'd like to do that.
and we got Tony and Cassie. Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. I got it.
Give you
Thanks,
something
sir.
to do, Tony.
Did you have anything else, Tony? Anybody?
No,
from the
it's
audience?
good. Hey, I will
Sir?
say this, being in the, the automotive business, that if they could do some adults with that, the automotive part would be great because everybody is looking for mechanics. I mean, not against the younger kids. If somebody's older and they've done it, they don't have the.
Adult mechanic training, you're saying?
Just a little
Did you
bit.
hear that, sir? One of the things that Tony commented was that on the mechanic side, like, it would be even great to see that become more part of your adult training too, because they're suffering from mechanics. He has a business himself and there just aren't any mechanics out there.
Yeah, I mean, Tony, we talked before on the phone and I said, if you need some interns, we can.
No, I'll be in this here right out of COVID. I know that. We talked about it. I'm just letting you know. It's just a thought. That's all.
Right.
But we'll.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Hey, could I ask one quick question? And it's gonna be directed towards Rachel. I think before the first of the year, in a commissioners meeting, I don't think it was in a council meeting, but the commissioners turned down the thought of putting some teeth to the homestead agreement. Because they're doing away with mortgage exemption. And the only people that would affect would be people that live outside the county that are taking advantage of our exemptions. In your opinion, would that be enough to pay for your program? And that program's once, it would be an ongoing thing. So if you sit back and think of how many years they've gotten that exemption incorrectly.
That's what we denied.
I don't remember the council ever doing it. The commissioners did. You guys never come up to me.
No, you must not remember that day.
What, Dave, is that a bad deal?
No, it never came to us. It came
They
to,
was-
there was a certain commissioner that was a little bit saucy. Would that be a?
Saucy.
That's a male for sassy.
but yes, so even if we found one homestead that has been ineligible for the past 3 years, that would pay for the whole program.
But, and it goes back to an integrity thing. I don't care if I've been on the FSA board or whatever boards. If there is somebody taking advantage and we can recoup that, at least I would hope maybe the commissioners would look at it again.
I can have that representative come to your meeting too to explain it.
Well, that would be helpful because I'd like to hear it too, like how the system doesn't catch it. Because like today in my closing, there are some specific documents that are recorded in multiple areas of government where you commit to saying that you only have one homestead
If-
exemption.
When you're doing it within state, so LaPorte County here or here, Pulaski County, easy to catch. It's Florida,
Illinois.
Illinois. It's when you're doing it in multiple states, that's hard to catch.
But they also have to declare residency there though, like they still have to prove that they live there. I mean, technically, you know.
How many Illinois cars are, how many people claim they're Indiana as their resident but have Illinois license plates?
My question would be is, that's a pretty expensive deal. I mean, we might be able to do that ourselves and get an intern in here and.
$7,000.
Oh, I'm just saying though, I mean, that we might, I just don't know how many offenders, like there are people from other offices that think that we may not have that many.
I know of one just in one of my divorce
Oh.
cases.
All right, there you go. There you go. It'll pay for us.
Like this company guarantees you get your money back.
And here's the thing, if you don't, so what if you don't get enough? You not only stop them from this year, but from the next year, from the next year.
Yeah, it'll
from
be a
next year.
collective.
It could really snowball, I think, but that's just me.
Yeah, and then maybe it'll inhibit others.
Yeah.
I just, something that you said about integrity.
So I think we were getting a motion.
Yeah, I make a motion to adjourn.